You know the story. A huge corporation buys a small, quirky, activist company that everybody loves. And usually that's where the story ends, right? The little guy gets swallowed up, the mission gets watered down, and another cool brand just fades away. But what if it didn't have to be that way? What if the big fish chose to learn from the little fish instead of just controlling it? Well, let's get into the incredible story of Unilever and Ben & Jerry's, a case that really might just rewrite the book on how these deals are done.
Okay, so picture this. It's the year 2000. Unilever, this absolute behemoth in the world of consumer goods, decides to buy Ben & Jerry's. You know, the ice cream guys from Vermont, famous for their wacky flavors and, more importantly, their very loud social conscience. It was a total David and Goliath situation, but, with a checkbook instead of a slingshot. And pretty much everyone right away was skeptical. I mean, how could a company that was basically built on peace, love, and ice cream possibly survive inside a massive corporate machine? Everyone was just waiting for the brand's unique soul to totally melt away. So, the big question is, did it?
And let's be real, the culture clash here was just massive. On one hand, you've got Unilever, this sprawling global entity, and on the other, you have Ben & Jerry's, a company that literally started in a renovated gas station and cared just as much about its social and human capital as it did about its financial capital. It was the ultimate showdown, corporate culture versus counterculture.
And yeah, at first, it really looked like all the critics were going to be proven right. The deal was signed, and the fallout was pretty much immediate. The brand's reputation took a huge nosedive, and it really seemed like its soul had been sold for a profit.
And we're not just talking about bad PR here. You could actually measure the damage. Before Unilever came in, Ben & Jerry's was ranked number 5 on the Wall Street Journal's list of most socially responsible companies. And afterwards, they plummeted, all the way down to number 30. It was a crystal clear sign that the public felt the brand's social capital, its credibility, had been seriously compromised. But here is where the story takes a fascinating turn. Instead of a typical tight-fisted integration, Unilever did something really unconventional. They chose a different path, one that was all about learning, not just control. This was their independent strategy, and it's a perfect example of what you'd call a deliberately soft or slow integration style.
See, Unilever was smart. They understood that the real value of Ben & Jerry's wasn't just in ice cream sales, it was in its unique human and social capital. And to protect that, they did a few key things. They kept the headquarters in Vermont, they let it operate with its own CEO, and, this is the big one, they set up an almost completely independent board of directors whose entire job was to protect the brand's identity and its social mission. This soft integration was all about preserving value, not just absorbing it. The new CEO that Unilever brought in, Yves Couette, he totally got it. He knew it was a delicate balancing act. He basically argued that for the social mission to thrive and grow, the company had to be financially successful. This quote really nails the new philosophy. Making money wasn't the enemy of the mission. It was the engine that was going to let them scale it up. And now we get to the part of the story that is just wild. Not only did Ben & Jerry's survive the takeover, it actually started to change its massive parent company from the inside out. This wasn't a simple acquisition anymore. It was the start of what you could call a reverse influence. You can see how this influence played out right on this timeline. So in 2000, the deal happens. But then, fast forward to 2009, Unilever's own global CEO launches this massive corporate strategy built around sustainable living brands. I mean, that sounds an awful lot like the Ben & Jerry's playbook, right? And then you get to 2016, and the founders, Ben & Jerry themselves, get arrested at a protest. And the company? Instead of hiding, they proudly support them. That showed the cultural shift was absolutely real. So far from being crushed, the company's activism actually got bigger and louder. With Unilever's huge global resources and distribution network behind them, Ben & Jerry's started taking on massive issues. We're talking climate change, marriage equality, racial justice. Their voice was suddenly amplified, letting them make a way bigger impact on the world stage. You can literally see that connection right here. On the left, you've got Unilever's big corporate push for more sustainable plant-based products, and on the right, Ben & Jerry's, which became a poster child for that exact idea. The small, quirky brand from Vermont had somehow become a guiding light for the entire corporation's new direction. Okay, but what about the money? Did this all actually work as a business? Well, this hands-off, mission-first strategy turned out to be incredibly profitable. By 2020, Ben & Jerry's wasn't just getting by, it was the #1 top-selling branded ice cream in the entire United States. It was definitive proof that protecting your social capital can be a huge driver of financial capital. So, what we're looking at here is a genuinely unlikely success story. It's a case that really challenges all the old school thinking about mergers and acquisitions, and it suggests that maybe, just maybe, there's a new model for how this can be done.
Honestly, the perfect metaphor for this whole partnership is right there on the pint of ice cream. If you look really close, you'll find the little Unilever logo, but it's super subtle. It's in the background. Unilever's power is there, for sure, providing all that support, but it's designed to let the Ben & Jerry's identity be the real hero of the story.
And you know, maybe the best seal of approval comes from one of the founders himself, Jerry Greenfield, who was pretty skeptical about the whole thing at first, later said he was actually surprised at how supportive Unilever turned out to be. I mean, when the original visionary gives a thumbs up, you know you did something right.
So this whole story leaves us with a really important question for leaders today. In a world where a company's mission and social capital are more valuable than ever, does this story show us a new path forward? A future where the goal of an acquisition isn't just about control, but about partnership, about learning, and ultimately about creating a totally new and much more sustainable kind of value together. It's definitely something to think about.